Welcome to Dreamland, where we bring you captivating bedtime stories to help you unwind and drift off into peaceful sleep. Whether you're a fan of sci-fi, fantasy, mystery, or heartwarming tales, we have something for everyone. Tonight's story is The Order of Emotions, a journey through a dystopian city where emotions are suppressed, but hope is not lost. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what kinds of bedtime stories you'd like to hear in the future by dropping a suggestion in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Relax, enjoy, and sweet dreams.
The city of Vires stretched out like a monolithic tribute to order and efficiency, a sprawling expanse of steel and concrete that pierced the perpetually gray sky. Its vastness was overwhelming, stretching to the horizon in every direction, a city where every building looked the same. The skyscrapers rose like jagged teeth, sharp and unyielding, a testament to humanity's quest for control. The streets were wide and clean, immaculately maintained, with no hint of greenery, no parks, and no vibrant street markets. Just concrete, steel, and a cold, mechanical hum that filled the air. Despite the uniformity, Vires was a paradise of stability. There was no poverty, no crime, no fighting. Everyone had a place and everyone was at peace. But at what cost? The citizens of Vires walked the streets with blank faces, their eyes devoid of any light, their movements choreographed by an invisible force. The order had achieved its utopia, but the life had been drained from the city. Everything was gray. The very air seemed stale, as if even the wind had forgotten how to blow with joy. In this world, humanity had exchanged emotion for safety, vibrant life for numbed existence. In the wake of the Harmony War, the Order rose to power, promising an end to the chaos that emotions had wrought. The war had nearly torn humanity apart, fueled by greed, rage, and selfishness. Entire cities had burned as people fought each other, unable to control the storms of anger and hatred within themselves. The Order saw emotions as the disease that had driven humanity to the brink of extinction, and they vowed to find a cure. From the ashes of destruction, the Quell was born, a small device, no bigger than a fingertip, embedded behind the ear of every citizen. It regulated emotions, suppressing the dangerous ones, rage, greed, fear, but at a steep cost. It also numbed joy, love, and hope. The Quell was the foundation upon which the Order built its empire of control. The device eradicated the chaos of emotion, creating a society where everyone was calm, where passion no longer dictated actions, and where unity reigned supreme. The Harmony War had faded from memory, and the Order ensured no one would ever feel enough to start another. Vires thrived in its emptiness. Lila was born into this world of numbed tranquility. Like everyone else, she was fitted with a Quell at birth. Her life was orderly, predictable, and devoid of the complexities that had once defined humanity. She worked in a massive factory, where the clang of machines was the only melody to accompany the synchronized movements of the workers. Each day was like the last, a cycle of waking, working, and sleeping, repeated with mechanical precision. Her face, like those of her peers, was a blank slate, devoid of the nuanced expressions that once gave life to human interactions. But amid the sterile landscape of Vires, there was a hidden undercurrent, a quiet rebellion. Unbeknownst to Lila, a secret community of individuals, known as the Rememberers, had cast off the Quell's influence. They had discovered how to remove their devices, reclaiming their emotions in secret. These rebels left behind clues throughout the city, hidden letters, cryptic symbols, hoping to awaken the dormant humanity in those who dared to look. One such clue found its way into Lila's hands. While cleaning a neglected corner of the factory, she stumbled upon a small, worn book tucked behind a rusted machine. Her fingers, usually so precise in their movements, trembled slightly as she opened the cover. Inside, she found a crumpled letter, the handwriting uneven and urgent. There was a time before the quell, before the order. We felt joy, pain, love, the full spectrum of human experience. The Harmony War nearly destroyed us all, but the order's solution is worse than the disease. Find others, feel again. There is hope beyond Vires. Lila's heart quickened as she read the words. The quell hummed softly, trying to dull the spark of curiosity, but for the first time she resisted its influence. That night, in her sparse apartment, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. The face that stared back was a stranger, emotionless, neutral, as bland as the walls around her. But deep in her eyes she saw a faint glimmer of something she hadn't noticed before. Something alive, something rebellious. With shaking hands, she reached up to the back of her neck and began to pry at the device embedded beneath her skin. The removal wasn't easy. It hurt more than she had expected, the small device pulsing as if fighting against her efforts. But after what felt like hours, the quell came free, and for a moment, nothing happened. She sat there, staring at the small piece of technology in her hand, waiting. And then it hit her. A tidal wave of sensations crashed over Lila, overwhelming and chaotic. Her breath caught in her throat as a kaleidoscope of emotions flooded her system. Joy bubbled up inside her, wild and uncontrollable, only to be replaced by gut-wrenching sobs that racked her entire body. Her chest felt tight, her heart racing as emotions long buried exploded to the surface. Laughter erupted from her lips, a sound so foreign and yet so natural that it startled her. Tears streamed down her face, but she couldn't tell if they were from happiness or sorrow. The soft fabric of her clothes against her skin felt like electricity. Every sensation amplified 1,000-fold. Fear gripped her heart as she realized the enormity of what she had done. What if the Order found out? What if they took her away for reconditioning? But even as terror threatened to consume her, a fierce determination rose within her. She had tasted freedom, felt the rush of genuine emotion, and she knew she could never go back. The world around her seemed to pulse with new life. The drab walls of her apartment now held subtle variations in color she had never noticed before. The distant hum of the city outside her window was no longer just background noise, but a symphony of life and possibility. As the initial surge of emotions began to ebb, Lila found herself curled up on the floor, her body trembling from the intensity of the experience. She felt raw, exposed, as if her skin had been peeled away to reveal every nerve ending. But beneath the fear and uncertainty, there was an undercurrent of exhilaration. She was alive, truly alive, for the first time in her life. The following days were a blur of discovery and caution. Lila walked through the streets of Vires with newfound awareness, seeing the city and its inhabitants through eyes no longer dulled by the quell. She noticed the slumped shoulders of workers trudging to their shifts, the vacant stares of children in perfectly straight lines. Every interaction, every sound, every sight threatened to overwhelm her newly awakened senses. At the factory, Lila struggled to maintain her facade. She watched as a supervisor berated a worker for a minor infraction, the words harsh and cutting. The worker's face remained impassive, but Lila saw the slight tremor in his hands. She felt a surge of anger, quickly followed by compassion. How many others were like her, yearning for something they couldn't name? Weeks passed, and Lila learned to navigate her new reality. She poured her feelings into secret sketches, filling hidden pages with expressions of joy, sorrow, and everything in between. But the loneliness was crushing. She longed to connect with others, to share the beauty and pain of feeling. One evening, as the sun dipped below Vires' skyline, casting long shadows across the sterile streets, Lila noticed an older man watching her in a small park. His eyes held a warmth she'd never seen before, crinkling at the corners with an expression she couldn't quite name. He approached her, his voice low and gentle. "You've removed it, haven't you?" Panic gripped her, but the man, Darren, quickly assured her she wasn't alone. He spoke of others, a group called the Rememberers, who had cast off the Quell's influence. That night, Lila followed him through a labyrinth of back alleys and hidden passages, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. They stopped before a nondescript door in a crumbling building. Darren knocked in a specific pattern, and after a moment, the door creaked open. As Lila stepped inside, her senses were overwhelmed. The air was thick with the scent of incense and sweat, layered with the faint traces of shared meals cooked over open fires. The low lighting flickered with a golden hue, casting the room in a warm glow that was so different from the harsh fluorescence of Vires' streets. But it was the people that stunned her. It wasn't just their expressions, although their faces were alive with emotions, joy, grief, love, but the sound that filled the room. It was chaotic, human, and it roared in her ears like an orchestra of voices rising and falling in a symphony of emotions. To her left, a young couple sat close, their hands brushing as they whispered to each other, the soft smiles on their faces betraying an intimacy that would have been unthinkable outside. In the far corner, a woman gently cradled a weeping man, her soft murmurs of comfort audible even above the din of conversation. In the center of the room, a small group of friends were in the middle of a lively discussion, laughter bubbling up from their table as they joked with one another, their eyes alight with connection and shared memories. It was a cacophony of humanity, a scene so alien to Lila, yet so natural that she felt as if she were waking from a long, dark dream. On the walls, vibrant murals depicted scenes of love, rage, grief, and joy, their swirling colors a stark contrast to the sterile grays of Vires. Lila's fingers itched to touch them, to trace the brush strokes and somehow absorb the emotions they conveyed. Each painting told a story, each one capturing a moment of raw, unfiltered emotion that she had never experienced before. In the corner of the room, a musician played a haunting melody on an old stringed instrument, something Lila had never heard in person, only read about in forgotten history books. The sound tugged at something deep within her, awakening memories she didn't know she had. The musician's eyes were closed, lost in the rhythm of his music, his fingers dancing across the strings as if the instrument were an extension of his soul. "Welcome," Darren said softly, his voice carrying above the hum of the room. "Welcome to the heart of the Rememberers." For a moment, Lila stood frozen, unsure of what to do. She had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable, and yet there was an undeniable sense of belonging that settled in her chest. Here, in this small hidden room, was a community of people who had defied the order, people who had reclaimed their humanity. As she took her first steps further into the room, heads turned. For a brief moment, Lila felt a flash of the old panic. In Vires, drawing attention was dangerous, but the faces that looked at her were not the cold, blank stares of her fellow citizens. These faces were open, curious, and alive with emotions she couldn't yet name. A young woman with bright eyes approached her, smiling softly. "You're new," she said, her voice warm and welcoming. Without warning, she threw her arms around Lila in a fierce embrace. Lila stiffened, unused to such contact, but gradually she relaxed into the woman's arms, feeling the warmth of another human being for the first time in her life. Something inside her cracked open, and before she knew it, she was crying. Great, heaving sobs that racked her body, tears soaking the stranger's shirt. "It's okay," the woman murmured, stroking Lila's hair. "Let it out. You're safe here." In that moment, Leela felt the full weight of her existence in Vires, the years of numbness, the years of suppression, and it all came pouring out. She cried for the joy she had never felt, for the love she had never known, and for the life she had never lived. But she also cried for the hope that now pulsed within her, the hope that perhaps, just perhaps, things could change. Over the next few weeks, Lila found herself returning to the sanctuary of the Rememberers every chance she got. She spent hours in the hidden basement, soaking in the vibrant tapestry of human emotion that filled the room. She learned to name the feelings that surged through her: joy, sorrow, anger, fear, love. Every day brought new experiences, new sensations, and with them, a deeper connection to her humanity. She joined a small group of artists who gathered in the corner of the room, sharing sketches and paintings that captured their emotional journeys. Lila's fingers, once used to the precise movements demanded by the factory, now danced across pages as she poured her soul into her drawings. Her sketches adorned the walls alongside the murals, each one a testament to the beauty and pain of feeling. In quiet moments, Lila would sit with Darren and the other elders, listening to stories of the world before the quell. They spoke of great loves and bitter heartbreaks, of the rush of standing up for one's beliefs, of the bond between parent and child. These tales, so foreign to her quell-controlled upbringing, filled her with a bittersweet longing for a world she had never known. But even in this haven of emotion, fear was ever present. The Rememberers knew the risks they took every day. They whispered of increased patrols, of neighbors and co-workers who had disappeared for recalibration. Lila's heart would race every time she snuck into the sanctuary, terrified that this would be the day the Order discovered them. Despite the danger, or perhaps because of it, the bonds between the Rememberers grew stronger. They celebrated each small victory, a new member joining their ranks, a moment of genuine connection in the outside world, another day undiscovered by the Order. They held each other through the hard times, the loss of a loved one to reconditioning, the crushing weight of living a double life. Lila fought with friends and made up, experiencing the catharsis of forgiveness. She grieved for the years she had lost to the quell, supported by others who understood her pain. In secret, Lila began to leave notes of her own hidden throughout the city, tucked between the pages of discarded books, slipped into cracks in the walls, and placed behind machines in the factory. Each note carried a small message of hope. You are not alone. You can feel again. There is more to life than the Order allows us to experience. She didn't know if anyone would find them, but it was her way of fighting back, her way of sharing the humanity she had rediscovered with the world outside. But their fragile paradise couldn't last forever. One night, as the Rememberers gathered for a celebration, someone's birthday, a concept foreign to Vires' controlled society, the air was split by the shrill sound of alarms. The Order had found them. The room erupted into chaos. People ran in every direction, gathering what they could, desperately seeking escape routes. Lila found herself swept up in the panic, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She saw Darren across the room, his face set in grim determination as he helped others towards a hidden exit. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Lila saw a lifetime of emotion in that glance: pride, fear, resolve, and a deep, aching sadness. Then the door burst open, and the Order's soldiers poured in, their faces blank and emotionless behind their visors. Lila ran, tears blurring her vision, the sounds of struggle echoing behind her. She ducked into a narrow passageway, praying she remembered the route to the surface. Lila sprinted through the back alleys of Vires, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She darted around corners and leapt over debris, the heavy boots of the soldiers pounding behind her. The city loomed around her, its gray buildings towering like silent sentinels. Her feet carried her swiftly through the maze of concrete, and the sounds of pursuit seemed to fade. She found herself in a quiet street, the emptiness of the city stretching out before her. Panting, she ducked into a narrow alley, pressing herself against the cold wall. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she allowed herself to believe she had outrun them. She peered out from her hiding spot, scanning the deserted street for any sign of movement. The only sound was the distant hum of the city. But just as she stepped forward, a hand clamped down on her arm. Lila gasped as a soldier appeared from the shadows, his grip like iron. She struggled, trying to wrench herself free, but the soldier's face remained impassive, his blank eyes fixed ahead as though she were nothing more than an object to be handled. Layla screamed, panic surging through her as she was dragged out of the alley. She fought with every ounce of strength she had left, but it was no use. The soldier was unrelenting, his movements mechanical as he pulled her back toward the heart of the city. The other rememberers were similarly captured, dragged out into the cold, indifferent streets of Vires. The citizens of Vires, those blank-faced shells of people, walked past, completely oblivious to the commotion. Not one turned their head, not one broke the silence. The city had no room for compassion, no space for resistance. It moved in perfect synchronization, a well-oiled machine, utterly unaware of the humanity being erased before its eyes. Lila's heart ached as she looked into their faces. Did they even realize what they had lost? Did they even know they were missing something? She wanted to scream at them, to shake them, to force them to feel again, but it was too late. She was being pulled toward the center of the city, toward the cold inevitability of reconditioning. The process was simple. The quell would be reinstalled, stronger than before, and any trace of rebellion, any flicker of emotion would be erased. Those who underwent reconditioning returned to the city as hollow shells, just like the rest of the citizens. They would never feel again. Lila struggled as they dragged her into the sterile, white room. The walls were bare, the air cold. She was strapped into a metal chair, her arms and legs bound as the reconditioning device descended from the ceiling. It was a sleek, clinical machine, designed for one purpose: to strip away everything that made a person human. Her heart raced as the device made contact with the back of her neck, where her quell had once been. She could feel the machine's cold tendrils wrapping around her, digging into her skin, preparing to wipe away everything she had fought so hard to reclaim. Panic gripped her, a fear so intense it threatened to consume her entirely. She thrashed against her restraints, desperate to escape, to hold on to the emotions that had become so precious to her. Tears streamed down her face as she realized the futility of her struggle. A lifeless worker, his eyes vacant and his movements robotic, approached her. "Your fear will be over soon," he said, his voice devoid of any empathy or understanding. Lila wanted to scream at him, to make him understand that being fearless wasn't a gift, it was a curse. Fear, with all its sharp edges and suffocating weight, was still preferable to the numbing emptiness that awaited her. Fear meant she was alive, that she cared, that she was human. "Please, no," she choked out, her voice barely above a whisper. But her words fell on deaf ears. The worker simply stared at her, uncomprehending, as the machine hummed to life. Lila closed her eyes, trying desperately to hold on to her memories, her emotions, everything that made her who she was. She thought of the rememberers, of the brief moments of joy and connection she had experienced. She remembered the feeling of creating art, of laughing until her sides hurt, of the bittersweet ache of empathy. As the machine began its work, Lila felt her emotions begin to slip away, like water through her fingers. The sharp edge of her fear dulled, the ache in her heart faded. One by one, her feelings were stripped away, leaving behind a vast, empty silence. Her last conscious thought, before the quell took complete control, was a desperate hope that someone, somewhere, would find the strength to feel again. And then, just like that, it was over. Lila stared ahead, her eyes vacant, her face blank. The reconditioning was complete. She stood up mechanically, her movements precise and efficient, and walked out of the room without a backward glance. She rejoined the ranks of Vires citizens, another cog in the vast, emotionless machine. The city returned to its sterile, orderly state. The rebellion had been crushed, the threat of emotion eradicated once more. The order's control was absolute, its victory complete. But deep in the forgotten corners of the city, the quiet revolution was not entirely extinguished. In a small, crumbling factory, an older man with weathered hands found a crumpled piece of paper tucked behind a rusted machine. His fingers, usually so steady, trembled slightly as he unfolded the note. The handwriting was hurried, as if the writer had been afraid of being caught. It read, "To whoever finds this, know that you are not alone. There is more to life than what the order allows us to experience. Emotions are not a weakness, they are what make us human. If you're reading this, it means a part of you is questioning, searching for something more. Trust that feeling. It's the first step toward truly living. There is hope. There is a way to feel again. Find others. Remember who you truly are." The man's hand moved to the back of his neck, fingers brushing against the small bump of the quell. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, a spark of curiosity, a glimmer of doubt. He quickly folded the note and slipped it into his pocket, glancing around to ensure no one had seen. Outside, the streets of Vires were silent, lifeless. But inside his mind, something had stirred. The seed of rebellion had been planted again, and though it was small, it was growing. Quietly. Patiently. And the quiet revolution, though battered, was not yet defeated.